This podcast is hosted by licensed therapists, but it is not a substitute for therapy. The content is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice or a therapeutic relationship. If you are in need of mental health support, we encourage you to consult a licensed mental health provider in your area. I'm Dr. Marissa Eusebio.
I'm Dr. Ambrose.
We are licensed psychologists and we're moms, but we are not your mother's therapist.
Not your mother's therapist.
Welcome to our podcast. Look at us. We're in a new studio.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, we're in San Diego.
Yes, beautiful San Diego.
Yeah, which all three of us have some kind of history in San Diego. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of coming back home a little bit. And also, you don't know Jacob that well.
No, I've known Jacob for a whole total of like 10 minutes.
We're coming to know each other, and we're actually more similar than we thought. We both wore brown today.
Right.
So
we're we just got like these vibes.
Easy to get along with already, I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Just great. And then also, I thought we were going to lie and say we were in Dubai or something like that.
Like we did talk about that.
Because nobody could know but you're right. No, we're in sunny San Diego.
Yeah, sunny. It was misty when we rolled in this morning. I always forget how misty it is here. But so I should introduce like who you are, but I also want you to introduce yourself and talk yourself up a little bit. So Jacob and I go way back, Marissa, to when was the first time I met you? It was in our research lab.
Yeah, I was a baby in the program.
Yeah.
I just joined. You were doing your thing already, and I was like looking up to you because you were like the upperclassman.
Yes, I forgot to tell you that, Marissa. Jacob used to just copy everything that I did. Yep. So like I was in the trauma research lab, and then he joined that. And then I got the dissertation award, and he was like, I'm going to do that.
Yep.
And then he got, I got the student award. When I graduated, he did that.
Did that. Yeah.
And then I started a podcast, and then he started a podcast.
Hey, whoa. Hey, now we did that in reverse order.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but I did copy her.
Your podcast is way bigger than ours.
No,
Introduce yourself a little bit. Who are you? And also, what is your podcast about?
Of course. Well, so a lot of my identity is wrapped around, Anna. I've copied her most of my life. So that's the 50%. You just watch her, you get a bit of me. But yeah, so currently I am running a private practice in San Diego called Restore Psychology with my wife, Dr. Tilby Ambrose. So we've been working together for a while. I'm Dr. Jacob Ambrose, and I've been a licensed psychologist for the past around 3 years. Right now, me and my buddy Vinny, he's Dr. Vincent Barbieri. He's also running his own private practice, and we decided to just start talking about psychological concepts. Yeah. So we've been doing this for about a year now, and we kind of blew up after the past year, like talking about shame, attachment styles. I really found my niche when it came to styles of attachment, ADHD, and then it just started to go from there. And so lately, it's just been a lot of fun. Right now, I have a platform. If you want to look me up, is dr.jacob.ambrose. And I just have a lot of videos about attachment styles, narcissism, if you go way back, a lot about ADHD, stuff like that. And so we've got about a million followers.
That's
Wait, no, I don't have
crazy.
I have 100,000 followers. I would love to have a million followers.
We'll just say it's a million.
You were manifesting right there. You're manifesting
We're in
the million
Dubai.
followers.
We got a million.
Dubai, we have a million followers.
Exactly. I kind of look into the future, but that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to say that I love what you and Vinny are doing because we don't see a lot of men in psychology.
Yeah.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
So you copied Anna, but I just want you to know that Anna's copied me a lot.
So I don't know about that.
I mean, we got into grad school at the same time, but like I got pregnant first. I guess
that's true.
So I always like to say that she copied me.
I see. So I've been secretly copying you this whole time.
So that's exactly how all this works.
Triangle works.
Exactly.
I like that.
I've always been curious about why did you name your podcast the title that it is? So Two Dudes Talking Therapy, right?
Yeah.
Why did you call it that?
Vinny. He is so opinionated, and I love that about him. And so we had so many different names. At one point, it was going to be like Two Black Kings, and and we were like, Vinny, we can't call it that. And I was like, but actually we could. And then Tilby, my wife, she was like, no, we can't. And then
the voice of reason is what you're telling me.
Talking therapy. We're like, oh, that'd be great. And then we checked and we saw on Spotify, like everybody has a podcast called Talking Therapy. And then he was like, well, Two Dudes Talking Therapy. I'm tired. And we were like, okay, fine. We'll just do Two Dudes Talking Therapy. So that kind of led the whole thing. Yeah. But I do think it also speaks into how needed it is for a lot of guys to start talking about this stuff. And so that felt really cool because if you just kind of look at it at face value, it's kind of like this laid back nature of like, oh yeah, we're just two guys talking therapy.
Right.
And some people can kind of look at them like, well, these guys know. But I think partly with me and Vinny and Body, I can probably speak for him a bit, but it's this tie between healthy like masculinity,
Right.
healthy femininity wrapped together. It's like good to know psychological concepts. It's good to kind of know your feelings, to have emotional awareness. And it's also okay to be firm, in who
Yeah.
you are. And I think a lot of people are missing that balance.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly why I think the first time I saw your podcast, that was the first thing that stood out to me was like the name, especially us who have worked with a lot of men in our lifetime, thinking like, wow, to see that title at all is really cool. It's like some kind of underrepresentation that there is in today's world. So for you guys to do that is really, really cool.
Wow.
Her and I are really passionate about like, it's hilarious because we're reproductive mental health psychologists. We're also like kind of like maternal mental health and women's mental health.
Yeah.
But we're both really passionate about like men's mental health in a way that's gotten us a little bit of slack on social media because not a lot of women agree with how passionate we are about it. But we are. So
That's a hill we'll die on.
yeah.
Yeah, good. No, I've seen that. I've seen some of the posts and it feels very validating as a guy watching it. Like, I think you're speaking to, like, one of the things I appreciate about your podcast is that it speaks to a lot of unseen guys,
Right.
a lot of unseen men that have struggles too. And it's a balanced, I think, very like logical perspective in that too. And the whiplash, I think, is also more evidence that like, oh, you're speaking into something that needs a voice.
Yeah.
Like I think I even saw like some people in the comments talking about like, well, hey, I didn't realize that people actually there was a space for me to talk about this stuff. Like a lot
Right.
of guys. So I appreciate the stuff y'all are doing too. So
Yeah.
thank you.
And from women too, because I think there's more men out there supporting men's mental health and not enough women supporting men's mental health. So
Yeah.
it's important for us to say
Preach.
stuff like that.
Preach.
Yeah. But the reason we wanted you on our podcast is because I'm curious what you all's experiences too, but I have a lot of friends, right, that have at some point or another cut off their parents, right? Like, I'm not talking to mom anymore. I'm not talking to dad anymore for this reason or that reason or something that they did a long time ago. And listen, I'm not above it. I've been there. I've cut off my mom. There's been a few times where I've gone like to and from, right? But I'm starting to notice that like, it's like more than half of my friends at this point that has cut off a parent or like a sibling at some point, like close family members at some point. So I guess that's interesting to me in our line of work because we're primarily reproductive mental health therapists, right? So we work with a lot of parents and parents who are struggling in today in modern parenting. And usually kind of like the overwhelming concern that parents have is, I don't have a village. I'm doing this by myself. So then the question becomes like, what is the sacrifice that people have to make to have a village? Like, at what point is it okay to cut off a family member? Like, when are you really justified? And when is this more of a problem of like, well, how do we like repair with people once we've had like a falling out? Maybe they did do something messed up. I don't know. Do you all have that experience where you've had a lot of people like that you know of who have cut off like a parent or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen it quite often, one with patients, right, in the work that we do, and then also in my personal life, just seeing more and more people who are cutting off family members. And I will also say, I think there's a difference between like cutting off a family member and setting boundaries, right? I think those are two very different things. They can sometimes feel the same, but when I see someone who's setting boundaries and maybe distancing from themselves from family members or from certain people in their life, it feels very healthy. But I think that sometimes when we're just cutting people off, we're not really leaving room for reparation, for building back relationships when there might be rifts. And I think that because of that, people's villages are just getting smaller and smaller. And then in turn, they're suffering because of it. And I think it's this very tricky balance of figuring out, well, how do I keep people in my life that I want here? How do I distance myself or build back up some of these relationships? And I think forgiveness is a big piece of that. I think it's a very complicated topic.
Yeah.
I agree. I like what you said about the boundaries and the distinction between that and like cutting people off in an unhealthy way. Like I've also seen a lot of relationships where personal relationships, and I've seen a lot of like client stories where they cut off family members and it's just this really, really drastic thing. And I've seen healthy conflict resolution too. So it's a really big topic, and I think really needed, especially as the holidays are coming
The
up.
holidays are coming up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think one thing I'll point off to even just sort of like step my toes into the conversation is I think people have very different experiences with family members. So one very effective intervention for one family might be extremely unhealthy for another family. Cutting off someone who's an extremely emotionally abusive narcissist can be healthy, but cutting off somebody where there's hope for conflict resolution can be effective. I mean, not effective, you know? And so one thing that I like to bring up with a lot of clients and a lot of people is this analogy of sort of like a foot race, like a relay race when it comes to family history. I think about if you imagine your family history across several generations, and you imagine that you're doing this foot race, and your parents were the people behind you, and the parents of your parents were behind them. Is it sort of like in your family unit that they started behind you and created a world that you couldn't exist in without their footwork, and yet still passed to you a lot of the negative consequences of their life? Or is it that they've been sitting really far back in the race and they set you up for failure in a lot of ways? I think there's two really different kinds of families. And I've seen some people have families where they have been set so far back, and there's been so much pain and so much trauma. And that's a very different experience than some other kids that are like, they've been put so far forward, and yet they complain the most to their parents with the most disrespect. And I'm like, well, yes, there are some negative things, but look at the world they've set up for you. So I think that distinction can be helpful too in the conversation.
Yeah. Like going back to this idea of boundaries, right? Like, what if you have a parent that has said really messed up things to you, like growing up? Like really messed up things, like shaming you, embarrassing you, disrespecting you. Because I think that's most of the situations that I see, right? It's like my parents said this to me when I was younger, and I've never forgotten. It's actually been a huge kind of core belief of mine. I've kind of grown up around this idea of these voices that they put in my head. What do you do with that? And where do you draw the line and say, like, no, I don't want this person in my life anymore, especially if they're no longer doing that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. That last wrench you threw in there. What if they're no longer doing it too? That's really tough. I'm going to toss that on to Marissa.
Nice segue. Nice way to just, I like it. But I think the question that you're asking is very interesting. And I think it's so multifaceted because I don't think it's as simple as like they did all these really harmful things and now they're not, right? Because I think what it depends on is, what kind of relationship have you had with them since they've made these comments, right? If they're not making them anymore, has there been a space for forgiveness and for them to take ownership? Right. I think it's very different when a child comes to their parent, adult child, and they're like, these are all the harmful things that you said to me growing up. And the parent's like, well, get over it. I don't say those things anymore. Right.
Versus, or honestly, what usually happens is I don't remember saying that.
I don't remember. I hear that a lot in therapy where the parent, their parents are so dismissive of what their child's experience was. And I think for a few reasons, right? I think maybe they're dismissive because and when they were making those comments, they might have been in a place in their life where they were going through it and they might genuinely not really remember. They might have just been like dissociating during that phase of their life, or they might just have so much shame and guilt that it's just much easier to say, I don't remember this. We're just going to push it aside. Yeah. That is a very different reaction from the parent who owns up to what they had done. And even if maybe you don't quite remember everything that happened, but you're like, I can recognize that I was in my own place in life that was not a great place, and that affected my parenting and how I treated you. And then from there, like forming reparations, right? And building towards a place where you can eventually forgive and come to some kind of resolution. So those two things feel very different to me. And I think that is a big question that I would ask a patient who might be going through this is how is your parent responding, or whoever the other person is in this situation? How are they responding to you when you bring these things up? Yeah. Or are you not saying anything at all, which is something that also happens where they're like, that my parent or this person in my life made all these negative comments to me and just was so like almost or verbally abusive, but I don't even want to talk to them about it, but they should know the effect that they had on me. Right. So like there's so many factors here. And I think that's why that this is such a complicated conversation.
Yeah.
I think so too. And another piece too, right? Like you said, people that get feedback from their kids sometimes can, I don't know what happened. And then they can also go in the other direction where they experience not just guilt, but shame. So some parents can hear what you're saying and just completely have a meltdown. And they're like, I'm the worst person in the world.
Yes.
I'm an awful parent. And so I know there's a lot of listeners that can
Yes.
experience the stonewall of like, I don't know what you're talking about. And the other side of, my parents will have a meltdown if I give them feedback, right?
Right.
And I think that's a tough balance for a lot of people with the holidays coming up, especially as you're bringing your spouse to Thanksgiving, or and there's issues that have been rooted for a long time, and you just kind of have to stay silent or drop the grenade, right? Like a lot of people, there's so much difficulty with the conflict resolution piece, I think, right?
The conflict resolution piece, and then what that ends up leading to, like the consequence of that, is just tension.
Yes.
Tension at Christmas, tension at Thanksgiving, like, and you're just kind of like white knuckling the holidays for like a lot of people, or like birthdays, or, you know, for us, like, you know, because our parents have grandkids now. So it's like a lot of different holidays where you're just kind of like white knuckling the whole experience. This has been an especially interesting conversation lately, now that I'm a mom. Because I've recently realized that I am not going to be a perfect mom forever. That was a shocking revelation to me.
Dang.
Yeah. And so then I keep wondering, like, what am I going to go through in my lifetime while I have kids, right? Who knows? Cancer, I don't know, health scares, someone died, I lost my job, I don't know, just horrible things, right? That I'm not going to be the best version of myself during those times. And I'm still going to have to be a mom. Yep. So what things might I be doing during that time that in 20 or 30 years, my sons are going to come back and be like, when I was having a bad day at school, you were ignoring me, you were on the phone, you know, and I'm going to be like, but like, take it into context. Like, I wasn't doing great either. And so now I'm starting to think more about like, what does that mean about our parents and all of these parents that get kind of cut off? Like, because it's so common now that I start to wonder what has changed from previous generations that were doing this, right? But not to the degree that we are now.
Yeah.
I think some of that too is like before it was this sense of like duty. Like sometimes just respect for elders, right? Like this idea of cutting off was like weird, strange. Like it wasn't even something you really considered. And nowadays, the bar has lowered a lot. Like the relationship that you have with your parents is basically like, do you want to? That's the only bar to meet to keep that relationship. So then any slight argument or things like that can immediately lead to somebody getting cut off.
What do you mean by the do you want to piece?
Like, do you want to have a relationship with them? There's nothing like bigger kind of keeping you here, right? It's not this respect for elders. It's not even like religion or spirituality or love thy parents or any of those things anymore. It's just, do you want to?
Yeah.
Almost like a friend.
Right. Yes.
Like the bar has lowered to like a friend, basically. Yeah.
There's like 3,000 places my mind went. I like one thing that I always say when I'm working with like clients and I'm trying to help them with like family dynamics and whatnot or parenting. If you're ever trying to figure out how good a parent is doing when it comes to raising their child, a good question to ask is, how vulnerable is the parent with their kids in the moment? If they are too vulnerable, if they're too vulnerable, then that kid is going to be crippled with anxiety.
Oh, I see.
If they're not vulnerable enough, then that kid is going to react in the opposite direction. And they might take more responsibility or less, who knows what, right? But the more you become if you're friends with your parents, it's such a difficult dynamic that comes from that because one, it's hard to call out. Like, who am I to call out friendship? Like a high five is supposed to happen with friendship. But when I see a lot of kids that are too comfortably close with their parents, they won't see the negative effect. They won't see the negative effects of that until they become fully grown adults. And then they're stressed out, they're anxious because they saw behind the curtain of the Wizard of Oz too soon. You know the drama between me and dad too early. So now you know the world is not a place where you can turn your brain off and expect good things to happen to you outside of your awareness. But anyways, that's like one rabbit hole from what you said. But then the other piece I think is just a wider conversation, right? Of like families nowadays are giving up the communal sort of aspect. We're turning more so to this, I don't want to, and I can live in my own box. I can live my own life. I can be more independent. And the last thing I'll say is I think you're right. Like, I think a lot of kids that grew up in this very woke generation are now like having kids now. And now they're starting to see that, wow, I ran so far away from the traumatic experiences that my parents gave me. And now I'm raising kids that are not having the best relationship with me. So I'm like, wow, good morning. You ran from that and you were so ready to cut off your family. And now your kids are in their own ways doing their own thing. So there's still something happening here. But I just,
Yeah. And I think, were you going to say something?
Yeah, but you can go.
I was going to say that like sometimes with like forgiveness too, there's this idea that we have that like when we repair with a parent, it looks like, hey, you said something to me that I didn't like. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I said that. And then we move on. And that is rarely the examples that I see, not from friends, not from patients. It's usually a little bit of gaslightiness. I didn't say that. Or what you said, so I was a horrible mom then? Or something in there, like something is always murky.
yeah.
It's never that clear cut.
Right.
Or I shouldn't have to apologize because I was going through a really hard time during that time. So maybe you just need a little bit more compassion towards me. It's always something that muddies the water a little bit, which makes me wonder, like, maybe this is just having a relationship with a human.
Yeah, chills.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So as you were talking like about why this is happening, why so many people are cutting off family members or parents, I think one of the other reasons, and I mean, don't come for me when I say this, but I think psychology and mental health in some ways is contributing to unhelpful ways of thinking, right? Because we talk about boundaries, right? But we don't have the whole conversation, or people see snippets on social media and they're like, okay, boundaries, I can just like cut people off.
Right.
But really when we're talking about boundaries, what we're talking about is when is someone being unhealthy and what are the rules that I have for myself for when someone can come into my life and they can't. It's not just cutting people off.
Yeah.
I think people like there's this concept or this idea of keeping your peace, which is so important. But then you're just cutting off all these people to keep your
Right.
peace. Sometimes keeping your peace is learning how to forgive. Is learning how do I have complicated relationships? Or how do I have a relationship with someone who does not meet all my expectations? Like that's just maybe who they are. And I have to accept that you're not going to meet all my expectations. And maybe I have to adjust what that relationship looks like, but it doesn't mean that I cut it off.
Right.
But we're not having the full conversation. We're just like, oh, you did this, bye. Oh, you did this, see ya. And I think that is really unhealthy.
Right.
And I think it's one thing if someone is cutting off maybe like one or two family members, or there are absolutely people that I've seen or patients I've seen who like come from really unhealthy family dynamics and they decide to kind of set boundaries with their whole family. And I think that is healthy at some times, right? But if I see a person who's like, well, I cut off all these family members and all these friends and then family from the other side of my, like just so many people in their life, I'm like, cutting off a lot of people.
Yes.
And I start to wonder, like, what are you doing here? Because I don't know if the family is completely the issue. Why are you cutting off so many people? What is leading to this idea that you cannot have these complicated relationships or strained relationships? And I think that's a conversation that we need to be having more often.
Yeah. I love that you said that idea of like protecting your peace, because it has gone too far, protecting your peace. Like being in relationship with other people, not having peace is an occupational hazard of having relationships with other humans.
Right.
If you want peace, then just isolate yourself.
Yep.
And then let me tell you, if that's the way that you're going, odds are pretty good that at some point you're going to be in therapy when you're later in life and you're like, I'm struggling because I have no one around me.
Yeah. I don't
And that's
have a
not
village.
isolation is not peaceful
Yeah.
in most circumstances,
No,
right?
yeah.
Dang. I'm getting chills. There's some popcorn. Oh, dang. I need to watch y'all podcasts more often or be here. I'm gonna be in every podcast now. Sorry, Vinny. No, I'm just kidding. No, I can't abandon my boy. No. We're
Sorry,
gonna
Vinny.
do relationships together. We're a family, right? So I can't cut Vinny off. I gotta cut you guys off. You know what I'm saying?
We're just
y'all
placing
can't-
boundaries with Vinny.
Right.
That's all we're doing.
Let's set boundaries here. As things get good, then that's when you have to have more boundaries, right? So I'm like, no, I love everything y'all said, but like I'll even add that like the closer you get to Or like, I think the closer you become in relationship with other people, the more complicated things are bound to get. And so I think people are way too surprised when conflict pops up in family relationships. Once the holidays come up, why are you surprised that there's going to be conflict? Because if you think about it, think about your relationship with your partner or your closest possible relationships. With every level of intimacy as it increases, that's where more problems exist. And that's where more difficult conversations are required. Just like you were saying, right? Like if you aren't willing to do the work of relationships, you'll be on an island alone and you'll never learn the required skills for healthy communication. So what happens with families is that you have one of your most intimate possible relationships as a child in that family unit. Then you go off and do your own thing and disappear, and you change a lot. And then you come back to your family unit during the holidays, and you're a different person now.
You're a different person.
With
but
a
to
different,
them, you're the same person as when you left. Yeah.
Yes, and you have a new adopted person in the family, which can be your spouse sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
How complicated is adoption by itself, right? And so you're taking these two parties that are coming back together with a whole new culture that used to be the same, and then you're coming in there with awful expectations that everything's going to be fine, you know? Versus when we approach marriage, when we approach adoption, we approach it with such caution and thinking, okay, well, let's expect problems.
Right.
Like that's, I think, the new approach that we need to take when we come back together as family, that problems are going to happen. And if they're not to the level of abuse or complete just unhealthy dynamics that are damaging, you need to expect to have good, healthy relationship relationship time together where you're just kind of making these things work, right?
Yeah, yeah. And actually, everything that you're saying is spot on with the literature, too. Most of the literature says that your relationship with your family members is going to ebb and flow in your lifetime between states of like connection and disconnection, and connection and disconnection. And that's perfectly normal to feel a little bit more distant. Maybe you just need more space. Maybe you're growing into yourself and want to explore this other side of yourself or whatever it is. But it ebbs and flows nonetheless. It's not one static thing. And then I wonder what that would change if we just approach families in that way. Like that's the baseline that we work off of. With my mom, with my dad, with my siblings, I will never have, with my partner, right? Yep. Like your husband, your wife, your kids too. You're not always going to have this perfect, we're always connected and always have been experience. It ebbs and flows. And I think for our patient population too, we usually see them on the disconnected side because we work with a lot of moms and dads who are just having a baby and they're not feeling too connected with each other and how normal that is. You know, so I think a part of what we do a lot is normalize.
What have you both seen when it comes to moms, parents raising kids, when it comes to, you know, their families, right? Like you're trying to find this balance between benefiting and using your community for support, but then also you're raising a kid and you're thinking about boundaries. Like, what do you see usually when you're working with clients that are trying to navigate boundaries as adults with kids and with families?
Yeah. I think one thing that I've started to see, especially lately, is parents, especially of like young kids, right? They're just starting off with their own families, having a lot of pain and uncertainty with how to navigate their relationship with their parents, because there's this thought of like, man, depending on the situation, like how did my dad abandon me, right? Like I'm here with my kid and I can never imagine just walking out on my kid, but like that's what my parent did to me. Or I have a strained relationship with my mom and I so desperately want to be close and connected to her because now I have my own daughter and like I just want her to come alongside me as I'm becoming a mom and that relationship is strained. And so I think in so many ways people really struggle with how to have these conversations and how to come back together when there's pain involved here. And I think having young children really can amplify that.
I see. Yeah, the conflict resolution piece gets really hard.
Gets really hard. And the stakes feel higher when you have your own kids because your perspective shifts, right? It's like, okay, now I have my own children. I see what my parents were going through. And your perspective definitely, at least for me, I'm assuming for you too. Like I had my kids and I was like, whoa, life is really different.
I genuinely had the thought that if I just try and be a good mom, then I will be one. And I've recently come to the realization that that's not how it works.
But also, but maybe it actually is. Because what is your idea of being a good mom? Being a good mom and a perfect mom are two very different things.
Exactly, yeah. And I had an idea of being a perfect mom. I was never going to mess up because I genuinely had the intent of never messing up.
Yeah, that is very different than being a good mom. I think we have to have this understanding that being even a great parent comes with making a lot of mistakes. And honestly, I don't think I would have wanted a parent who is perfect anyways, because I am learning from that parent. I am seeing my parents make mistakes, maybe have arguments or tiffs or going through their own things. And I learned how to navigate stress. I learned conflict resolution. All of these things I learned from my parents. And if they were these perfect parents or came across as being perfect and hid everything from me, then when I become an adult, it's like, well, shit. How do I do this?
Right.
How do I learn this? Learning those things as an adult is so much harder than learning them as a child.
Who would have thought adversity is part of learning how to be in relationship with other humans?
Wow.
Yeah.
Well said.
Really
Dang,
hoping
y'all
that
are
wouldn't be the
smooth.
case.
Sheesh. That transition was smooth. We just had to pause and then not talk about the transitions. So we just have to accept that they're good.
Right.
But I agree 100%. Like, if you never see adversity, like that's what helps kids learn how to navigate conflict. If you can have just a little touch of conflict. I always have this example where I'm like, if you come home from work as a parent and you have a bad day and you get fired, you don't come home and talk to your 6-year-old and say, the world is ending. I'm sorry, life is over. But you also don't come home and say, everything's perfect. You know,
Right.
it's just, you come in and you say, mommy had a hard day at work today, but everything's going to be okay. And I'm actually, I'm feeling something, but it'll be okay. And I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Like there's this middle ground of taking on hard times. And I don't think a lot of kids get that sometimes. And so then they go on to deal with their own conflicts in the future. And then it's like, okay, if there's any uncomfortable tension, then that means this relationship is stealing my peace.
Right.
And I love that language. And I'm out. And then you never, ever since the day of your birth, get experience with healthy conflict resolution. And then you're just stuck.
Right.
And you hide behind pop psychology that says set boundaries.
Right.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
you're just stuck
Psychology.
even
I
more.
love that term. Yeah.
Pop psychology.
No, and going back to your question about like what are we seeing in practice, that example that you just gave of like a parent coming home and kind of pretending that everything is like perfect when they're really struggling is most often what I see. Because I see so many moms that put a lot of pressure on themselves that like, my mom, she put too much on me and I need to stop that. I need to stop that generational trauma of leaning on my kids. And so now it's almost like the pendulum has swung too far. They've gone in the other direction to try and be this like perfect mom, I'm going to like protect my child's peace. But then are we really living in a family, or are we just living for this child? Going back to our very first episode about child-centered parenting and all the beef that I have with child-centered parenting.
Oh, goodness.
Like we have to start thinking about what is the best thing to do for our family, right? So if that means I'm in a really bad mood today because I had this horrible day at work. But trying to like not yell at them then because of they left their shoes in the middle of the hallway or whatever there is, right? But at least being honest and saying I'm not in the best mood right now. I think that's important too. And it also gives your kids permission to say, I'm not in the best mood. I got home from school and I also had a bad day.
Right.
You know?
And I want my kids to say those things
Exactly.
to me. I want my kids to come home and be like, yeah, I had a rough day, or this thing happened to me, or I had a great day. Like I want to share with them all of their experiences.
Exactly.
And I can't expect them to do that with me if I don't teach them how to do that first.
Right. Right.
And we were actually having a similar conversation when we were driving over here. And I didn't even think about how it could be relevant to today's conversation. But we were just talking about how we've seen different people in our own experiences growing up, right? And having parents like, for my example, like, my parents definitely went through their trials, tribulations, and had a lot of struggles. But thinking back as a kid, I never felt like, oh my gosh, everything is going to end. This is so bad. Like I knew things were really rough. And I knew my parents were struggling. But the common theme throughout all of that is like, you know what? We're a family and we've got this. We will figure this out together. Like, yeah, you may not get as many gifts at Christmas time as some of your friends. And you know what? We're going to do fun things together anyways. Or maybe you don't get the vacations that you see your friends getting. But like, here's what we do have. And we have this connection within our family. And they were very honest about it without disclosing everything that was behind the scenes. But I also felt like I'm part of this family and we got this. Yeah. And I think that is sometimes lost in today's generation where we have, like you said, the pendulum has swung so far to the end of we want to protect our children
but it's to their detriment.
To their detriment, because like we said, adversity is good. And letting them see how families work things out is good. And I love how you're saying that you felt part of the family when your parents were having a hard time. And that, I think, is what it feels like from a child's perspective to be in a family-focused family.
Right.
Yes.
Versus a child-centered family where it's almost like everything is about you, which kind of breeds little narcissists.
Yeah, exactly.
We're all like,
Boom, mic drop. Yeah, you never like if you never learn to, or if you never witness adversity in your family unit, how will you ever know that your family or unit can survive adversity?
Yeah.
And then if you have those experiences, then you get to adapt and cope with that, and then you know your family is built on something stronger than just fake happy mood like you're at Disney World all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you keep, it's like a lot of. I feel so weird saying it's not being a parent. But I imagine a lot of parents try to protect their children too much from themselves and other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God, if this other kid doesn't smile at my child, then that kid can't be in our life anymore. Or if our cousin does not pay perfectly close attention to my child, then now they need to be out of our life, and now I need to protect my child. If I have a bad day, then I need to 100% keep it silent and not express any vulnerability around my child. And so then that kid can have a world and live in a fantasy world, right? And honestly, the biggest piece of narcissism is you close your eyes to reality. And then they learn that reality is not supposed to look like a place that it actually is. And so if you do that with a child, then you can raise a little narcissist.
Yes, you can.
Narcissism can be good for a while when you are a young child, but as you get older, you have to start to face reality and overcome that.
Yeah. And we're way more prone to it as American families to have this kind of like ability to raise kids to only focus on themselves, I think. Because in a lot of like more collective cultures that doesn't happen as much, right? Like kids are honestly, like for example, when I was looking at potty training and stuff in different cultures, in America, people will like, there's like all these checklists, like how to know if your toddler is ready for potty training. Well, have they done this? And are they talking about poop enough? Like all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at like very traditional like Mexican cultures, the bar for them starting potty training is like when we've had enough of your shit. Like it's time for you to be potty trained because we're done changing your diapers. Like that's the bar. So it's very much almost like a family decision versus like what is the best thing for the child. And what message does that send to the kid? Oh, I guess I have to think about my family too.
Right.
And everybody else's convenience or not convenience or what they want. And if everybody thinks about each other's, now we're in a family-focused family versus a child-centered family. So for you, Dr. Ambrose,
Yes.
Mr. Attachment expert here, so for people that are actively struggling with this, right? Like they have gone through waves of like cutting off family members or maybe they do want a close relationship with their parent, but they're having a hard time doing that. How does one even go about that? Especially for parents that maybe won't own up.
Yeah. I think I like to even just start the conversation with attachment. When it comes to insecure attachment, I think we are sort of, in at least healthy family dynamics, creating the conditions for insecure attachment. So for example, like anxious attachment, avoidant attachment is usually created once you are unable to tolerate healthy conflict in relationships. Anxious attachment, it's all about, I need reassurance to exist with you. And I need this to be a perfect balance of communication between me and you. Otherwise, this relationship is flawed. And I need to keep talking to you until like 5 a.m. until we figure this out. You never learn how to tolerate conflict and like not good stuff in relationships. And that happens with family. And so then you go to Thanksgiving and you're like, they're not listening to me. I'm like, well, hey, yes, use good communication. But at the end of the day, you're not going to get on the same page with someone that existed in a different generation than you in one night, And then with the avoidant attachment is fully on the other side of the power dynamic of, right? Like if I am not able to have my needs met, then I'm going to cut you off and I can live my own life.
Yeah.
And so I think if you look at both sides of attachment, part of the issue with forgiveness and community is if you go on either end of that spectrum, you're cutting people out of your life that don't necessarily need to be cut out. I think we've lost the art of staying in community with people even when things get hard. And we're learning that if we can be in our own space with our own circles that are good, that can be our community. But I don't think that's perfectly healthy. I think we run too far. So I have a lot of thoughts about like what it looks like with anxious attachment versus what it looks like with avoidant attachment. And I think what could be healing for a lot of people is to figure out, what does it look like for me to navigate conflict in a healthy way with my anxious attachment while still respecting good boundaries when it comes to emotional abuse if that's happening in your family unit, right?
Right.
How do I navigate this with avoidant attachment when I want to set a lot of boundaries without letting someone take so much advantage of me that I'm being introduced to another toxic relationship with family where I'm being damaged and my kids are being hurt? So I think that is something that needs to be talked about more because there's not one answer to it, right? But those are my first thoughts. And I completely forgot your question.
How do people? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I love everything that you're saying, and especially the line where you said the art of community, because it really is art, right? It just really is kind of like a dance, right? Where you're just constantly figuring these things out. And I also had the thought as you were talking, I don't know how someone figures this out without going to therapy, right? If you're really struggling with this, like this is not a I'm going to go talk to my best friend, which is not a bad thing. I don't think therapy is always the answer. You always have to be in therapy. And I'm a big advocate that you don't necessarily have to be in therapy your whole life or for years and years, right? I think that we have community because, I call you all the time for my mom things where I'm like, help me with this, or I need to vent about this.
But I hear what you're saying. I'm usually going to take your side.
Exactly. You're usually going to take my side.
And also, where's the camera? Is that my camera?
Yeah, that's your camera.
And don't use ChatGPT. Just stop it, y'all. Like, stop it.
I use ChatGPT.
Listen, that will end your marriage or your relationship. It is
What do you
always
mean?
going to take your side.
I think you
Always going to take your side.
my wife is looking at me from a distance.
And you know what's really
Guys,
funny?
wait, can I have my camera moment? I love ChatGPT. It's
love it
always
too.
going to agree with you, and that's unhealthy. But let's just keep doing it. That's me stepping away from my psychology degree as I say that.
Listen,
I'm addicted. I have an
ChatGPT is a
addiction.
part of my family member.
No,
Oh,
I was
really?
gonna
It's a
say,
part of my family.
It's so interesting that you said that because I'm sitting here and I'm like, excuse me, you use ChatGPT.
You're so fake. You're so phony.
Listen, I talk to
You have an
ChatGPT more than I talk to my own, like my husband or my kids at this point. Okay, I talk to ChatGPT. The problem is when you ask it for relationship advice,
Right.
that's when I stop doing that because it always takes my side. And that's when it becomes a problem. And it's like, I knew it. I was right. And then all of a sudden, like every single time I ask it, I am right. And it's like, wait a second.
And all of a sudden you're getting a divorce.
Wow. No, that is such a good point. I've never thought about using it for that. I just kind of have like a secret, like forbidden relationship with my. No, I'm just kidding. My wife is watching from the corner, like, I need to check your ChatGPT feedback.
No, but like,
My
for real,
chat knows my attachment style.
Right.
I need to-
so does mine. Yeah. He knows all my blind spots too. I've asked it, like, what do you think are some of my blind spots?
That's
And it
so-
listed them all out.
That's so sexy.
I know. It's like a second part. I swear, it's like a second part of my family. But the problem is that a lot of our listeners are probably like, I'll just skip out on therapy because I can just ask ChatGPT. It knows way more than my psychologist. But here's the thing. As a psychologist, I'm going to be more honest with you.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas ChatGPT is not. ChatGPT is always going to take your side. And also your friends are too. I'm
Yeah.
always going to take your side
You're always gonna take
over
my
your
side.
mom's,
And
so.
I will call you, like, I know you're going to take my side on this, but I still need to hear your input, even though I know you're going to agree with me. And when it comes to these, attachment styles and trying to figure all of these things out, it's your therapist is meant to be that person that's very grounding for you, but like you said, also very honest, right?
Yeah.
And highlight the ways that your behavior is unhelpful or problematic.
Exactly.
Because you're not perfect either, right? And so because of your attachment styles, there are going to be times in your life or areas of your life that you really struggle, and maybe that's a blind spot for you. And your therapist is
Exactly.
there meant to come alongside you in a very loving and supportive way, but very honest in a way that ChatGPT or maybe our friends don't always do. And I think like for some of these things that are much more complicated, this is when I think therapy is really necessary.
Beautifully said. I agree. And I think what you're saying about like attachment styles, I prepared this just a little bit beforehand, so it's like scripted a bit, but it's with anxious attachment. This is my hard feedback for people with anxious attachment because I want to just dive into that too.
okay.
But my hard feedback with anxious attachment is that you have a hard time tolerating misunderstandings because you have extreme fears of abandonment since childhood and all sorts of interactions. But you see the bridge between you and other people as perfect communication. So if you never learn how to bridge that gap without perfect communication, then communication in and of itself becomes a barrier to connection. So as you have these holidays and family things coming up, you see it as if this family member that doesn't get me is going to no longer understand me. They've never understood me. And you just kind of go down that spiral. And I think for anxious attachment, what you have to realize is that you have to be able to tolerate disconnection in healthy family dynamics without having perfect resolutions. You have to lean forward and still exist and realize that if you don't get on the same page during Thanksgiving that night, that's okay. If you don't get on the same page that day, as long as you make an investment towards positive progress, because with anxious attachment, you are so dysregulated with difficulties that in and of itself creates more divide. So you have responsibility too with anxious attachment, even though there's still stuff that people are doing on the other side. And I don't think that's talked about enough. Everybody's like, oh, hey, if someone's disrespecting your boundaries, like cut them off, or if they don't respect you this way, your parents aren't listening to you, but nobody's arguing the other side enough. But that's another big piece that ChatGPT probably won't give you.
No, probably won't. This seems like a small detail in all of this, but I genuinely, as somebody who has gone through the process of like cutting off a parent and then reconnected and all these things, I will genuinely say and this is maybe for like anybody listening who is a parent and has been cut off, a really, really important factor here to reconnecting, it seems stupid, but I swear this has a lot of stuff to back it up, is having positive and fun experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Because it gives you something to work towards. Oh, well, you did this thing to me and I'm holding a grudge against it, but then I need a why. Why are we working through this? And especially in an age where I'm not just in a relationship with you because you're my parent and because I have to honor my parent. It's not that anymore, right? It's just the bar of a friend at this point, right? If we're at that point, then I need a reason to want to cross this hurdle, to want to talk this out, to want to repair. And if you can be someone that like you and I can listen to the same music in a car and like jam out, we can play board games together. You can make a joke and we have we laugh about something. Maybe you make fun of me and I make fun of you. Like, okay, I get this now. I see what I can get at the light of I see what's on the other side of this hurdle. But if we're in relationships with parents that are just serious all the time, honestly, what am I doing this for? What?
That's all in the Gottman literature too, right? Like there's this ratio of having more positive interactions than negative.
Yes.
And that's going to pull you towards wanting to resolve it. Both of you now have something in the game, right?
Exactly.
The best parts of you. So I love that. I've never thought about that, but that's it makes perfect sense when it comes to family dynamics too. What are we fighting for? And if it's just to have serious moments where we're just unhappy, then that's not fun.
Because sometimes I've seen the hurdles as pretty overcomable, right? I'm like, yeah, I think we could probably talk this out and get past it. But sometimes there just hasn't been anything on the other side for me to like do it. So it's really not a small detail here. Like you do have to have some kind of positive experiences like with your kids and put more energy into that because that could make or break, honestly, the relationship.
Yeah. And I think that goes for really all relationships, right? Like as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about how oftentimes when I'm working with new parents or young parents, one of the things that I'm asking them, and even if it's not like couples therapy, like I'm just working with one parent, I'm asking, how often do you and your partner spend time together?
Yes.
Just you two, whether it's a date night, whether it's going for a walk without the kids, because sometimes the reason that you all are arguing, it's the kids. It's not each other, it's the kids. Kids are stressful.
The little dictator living in my house.
Right. And now we got two of them.
Yes.
I have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old. And the 3-year-old is my little dictator. And the 8-month-old is watching. And I told my husband the other day, I was like, just wait. As soon as the 8-month-old, as soon as he's walking, we are in for it. Right. They like look at each other
he's
and they're
collecting
like,
information.
Right. They're like laughing and playing
data.
Yeah, he's collecting data. And we are going to be in for it. And so he and I will have conversations. Like we'll have hard days where we have just been at each other's throats and the kids go to bed and we're like, okay, it was the kids, right? And so we have to come back together, right? We have to like get on the same page and be like, all right, like let's have our time together. Right. Let's have our date night. Let's have fun
I don't hate
together.
You. Sorry.
I don't hate you.
I thought I did. I don't actually. Yeah. Yeah. And you only really get that from those kinds of like breaks and enjoying
and
each other's
having
company.
fun. I'm not
Yes.
talking about like, you have to sometimes sit down and have the hard conversations or like, what does our budget look like? Or what are these things, these issues in our life that you have to talk about? But if you are not making space for having fun with your partner or other people in your life, that relationship is absolutely going to suffer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We've lost the gift, I think, of distraction because we were so obsessed with we got to talk everything through, we got to figure everything out. But distraction and having fun can actually be good. It's an art form. And I also think like if you exist in your own bubble with someone for too long, even if everything is perfect, you're two flawed human beings.
Listen, that is the entirety of the postpartum experience for a lot of parents. Is just being stuck in a bubble with their partner and their crying baby. Like it's just maddening level. So yes, I get that 100%.
And the solution, like y'all are talking about, is community, right? Like being connected with other people, having positive experiences.
Yes.
And this is good even just for marriages. It's like you have a perfect marriage, but you've spent like the last 20 days just you two together and you're very disconnected from people. And then the moment they go out and do their own thing and then they come back, they're like, oh my gosh, things are great.
I miss you actually.
And I think it's the same thing with parents and kids of like some of the best times you can have and the most joy you can get is when being with a little kid. And as someone who hasn't had a kid of their own, so I'm just kind of speaking into this, you have so much joyful moments with your kid. But if you never take time to take care of yourself too and get that time away, then you won't come back and have those extremely great moments with your kid. I think the kid needs to have diverse experiences with imperfect human beings. So if you start cutting your kid off from people in your community because they're just below average in some area, that kid won't get what actually might be in your shadow wound. If you're uptight and somebody is loose, it's very likely that you might have to go to therapy to figure out you're loose before you realize that kid would have benefited from a relationship from them. In fact, maybe they need the eyes and the ears, and they can't exist with separated human beings. They need to be with both. That's what community is all about: eyes, ears, hands, and feet. I think it's connected to my Christian background as well. There's so many scriptures about that, right? But I'm hyper-focused right now. I'm just going in.
No, I love this.
I've already talked about this exact idea that he's talking about, like this idea that like I think in our generation of parenthood, we try and protect our kids. Like we want them to have the exact upbringing with the exact influences that we want for them. And so we don't let them have too many experiences. We were talking about this with my mother-in-law that sent us a little, we're not very religious in our home, but she sent us a little book that was about like Jesus and the Bible and stuff like that. And it was a toddler book, right? And I honestly had no problem with it. And my partner did. But I was like, I don't have a problem with it because that's his grandmother's religion. And that's very important to her. And she deserves to have some kind of individual relationship with her grandson outside of us. And if the way that she wants to have that is through her religion, beautiful. I don't have a problem with that. Amen. But I think nowadays we are too focused on like, I want my child to have this curated experience. And I don't want them to have anything outside of that. So I think a lot of people would be like, Grandma, don't send that stuff over here. We're not a religious household.
Well, and I think part of that, this curated experience, I love the way that you put that. You have to ask yourself what you're sacrificing in order to give your child a curated experience, right? You are sacrificing aspects of their relationship, maybe with their grandmother, right? Or as you're sacrificing parts of yourself. If you're like, well, I need my kid to be in all these different activities. And so because they're so involved in all these other things, I don't have any time for me or for me to do my things. So now you are sacrificing yourself and pieces of yourself. And then I think all of these things add up, right? Because then kind of like what we were saying earlier, this goes back to then raising children that are little narcissists because they're like, well, everything revolves around me. Like no problem at all. And I know I've talked about this in the past on the podcast, but like my parents were very like family centered kind of parents, right? Yeah. So I've always talked about how like my parents would listen to baseball on the radio when I was a child. And it was like the most painful experience. And I would just sit there like, I hate baseball season. And I still hate baseball season. Like I just get like little flashbacks, right? Or my parents would play softball and it was like, okay, it doesn't matter what you think you might have going on Thursday nights, but like we're going to play softball and like we are doing that as a family. So you guys are going to be there while we're doing this. And I think it was such a healthy experience because now I have my children and I'm like, no, I'm going to leave for a little while and I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to come back to you. And we're going to have so much fun when I come back to you. And I feel like a better parent and a better person because there is that separation that I'm then able to come back to. And I think that it's also important to recognize like you separating from your child and taking time for yourself does not include like going to work, right? And then coming back. You need time for you that is not work.
Or what I tell my patients, it's also not anything productive.
Oh, yeah.
Don't be like, I'm going to empty out the dishwasher and that's my me time.
I'm going to go grocery shopping and this is my me time. No, absolutely not. No.
I do enjoy it, but it doesn't count. It doesn't count.
It doesn't count. Yeah. And I think, I think just like the overarching thing that I think we keep coming back to is how complicated these relationships are.
Yes.
And they are meant to be complicated. We are complex humans. Yes. Our relationships with each other are complicated. Our relationships with our children and then our parents, all of these things are very complicated and they are meant to be. And so of course there is conflict and following that should always be, or maybe not always, but you should be looking for the resolution within that conflict and where can I make some kind of resolution or reparation and where do I need to draw a boundary and maybe separate myself from someone. It's a hard conversation and a hard thing to navigate, but I think that it's so necessary.
Wow. And we should be clear too that when abuse is involved and things like that, I think we're talking about a whole different ball game.
Right. There are times where it is like we are not coming to a conclusion or resolution here, or the conclusion is like you are out of my life, and those circumstances, I think, are absolutely valid, but those are not the majority. I think more often that's the minority.
Yeah.
But people are distancing themselves, cutting themselves off from people in their life when they could have positive relationships with people and have healing too.
We could have that village. It just requires a little bit of sacrifice.
Yeah. Wow. Y'all are cooking.
And letting go too of that idea of what you want your family to look like. Just let people be people.
Yeah, just let people and let yourself, right? Because that includes yourself. Just let yourself. You can make mistakes. You don't have to be that perfect mom to be a great mom. Yeah. And if anything, being the perfect mom
would be way worse.
Not being the great mom.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So Jacob, we usually wrap up our podcast with a call to action. And this is where we kind of like, what do you want people to take away from this? Or what are some things that they can do like with this information, right? Especially because I'm thinking the people that are watching this are probably people that do want to have closer relationships with family members and they just don't really know what needs to change to make that happen.
Yeah. Let me think. I think one important piece of feedback for people is to try, as someone who specializes in attachment, a lot of people are running away from something or running towards something and they're looking for truth. And I think we've really turned to pop psychology, boundary setting as one of those big things. And there's some stuff that's really good in there. Hold on to that and make sure that you're using healthy communication. You realize what like objectively good health looks like, and you're trying to create stability in your homes, but don't lean on that as an excuse to not have difficult conversations. I'll also say that a lot of people have a hard time listening to their gut these days. Like for example, like if you have someone that, let's say you get a partner, you're married or you're in a relationship with someone, and then the holidays are coming up and you've changed a whole lot in a lot of healthy ways. Honestly, your partner, the daughter-in-law or the son-in-law of the family now has a target on their back. They now are the person that is taking on all the projected issues, and the father is now looking at the child and saying, you've changed my baby girl or you've changed my son, who knows what. And I think sometimes we lean too far in the direction, wow, my parents are completely absurd and they're trying to mess up. I need to 100% prioritize my partner here. And I think some people go in the other direction and they just allow their parents to just bash their partners. And then it's like so disrespectful to their partner. And I think some people run too far in the direction of, hey, I need to support my wife, or I need to just let my wife speak into my ear and make those changes. But I think the real message needs to be, what is actually healthy? How can you listen to your gut and protect and respect your parents while also still protecting your partner and still moving towards those values? And so the biggest takeaway from all that might be, how can you figure out what's true and not what's popular?
Ooh,
That's how I would sum it up, I guess, as a wrap up. That was pretty good. I was
Yeah,
like,
that was nice.
I was like,
Mic drop.
ooh, thank you,
put a bow on
guys.
that. Okay.
I actually have one that is very closely related to what you're saying too. Like, I guess my call to action is like, boundaries feel good. I think that's why they've gotten so popular on pop psychology, is because like, oh, I set this boundary because I was wronged. And so I'm the one that's right in this situation. There's nothing wrong with me. And they feel very good to our ego to set that boundary. And so I think what I want people to think about in trying to create that village or create that community again is like, do you want to be right, or do you want a relationship with your family members? And that's a hard pill to swallow, I think. But I think that is, again, the occupational hazard of being in relationship with other people is sometimes you're right and people don't see it, and you just gotta move on. Say you're sorry, say there, let them say it, or maybe they don't, and you guys just play checkers. I forget about it.
Mic drop, play some checkers.
Just dropping all kinds of
gonna have like
Checkers of all the games, checkers. You had so many other options, so many fun games, and you chose checkers.
Yeah.
Thousands
How
of
dare you.
families watching are going to be playing checkers this
Yeah,
year.
there you go.
That's what Dr.
Just
Ambrose
lower
said.
the bar. Just lower the bar.
Dr.
by a
A
lot.
said play checkers.
That'll solve
Exactly.
everything.
I think for me, what I would want people to take away from this is, especially if this episode, what we're talking about, is resonating with people, go to therapy.
Yeah.
Even because I think a lot of people think, oh, I have to be really struggling or I have to be very depressed. That's when I go to therapy. No, you go to therapy sometimes just to help you sift through and navigate these complicated things. And like you were
And
saying,
you need an honest therapist.
oh, yes.
If your therapist is always agreeing with you,
There's a problem.
Right. And we've actually talked about this in the past about doing an episode of like what to expect from therapy. What
yes.
are you looking for? So we definitely have to do that at some point. But I think that, like you were saying, pop psychology, it's not a bad thing. There are concepts of pop psychology that are very helpful. I mean, this podcast, I hope that it helps people. But also, I hope that this opens your eyes that you might need to take this a step further and say, okay, the things that I'm seeing online, the podcasts that I'm listening to, or even the books that I'm reading might quite not be enough. I need to sit down and have conversation with someone and be in therapy to figure out how to navigate this and to sift through both of the things that you guys are saying. What is truth? What is not? Like, how do I navigate complicated relationships? How do I open myself up and be vulnerable to have some fun with someone? Right? It's not just having fun. That takes so much vulnerability. Checkers or not, right? Whatever you're playing, it takes vulnerability to open yourself up and have fun and be in communion with someone else. And I just really think that this is something that I think not enough people go to therapy for.
Can you sum up our podcast at the end as well? Two dudes talking therapy, like kind of just listen to like what we talk about,
And then
pop
come
in
in.
the last 5 minutes and just say, yeah, so the takeaway.
I could be like the voice of God, right? I'm just like coming in. There's no video. Like I'm just like ending your podcast with my summary.
So guys, to wrap up, like that was really good.
Thank you. Well,
this is great.
yeah, this was really
fun.
This is a
enjoyable.
needed conversation, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so
thank
too.
you.
Of
Yeah.
course. Thanks
Dr.
for having
Jacob
me in
Ambrose.
Dubai. It was great
Yeah,
to
in
be here.
Dubai. Stop copying everything I do. Have your own life. I'm setting boundaries with you.
I disagree. As a good therapist. I disagree with you. Yeah.
All right.